Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You might know him as an actor, you might know him as a film producer, you might know him as a wrestler, you might know him as a football player. Most likely not though. He's widely regarded as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, as well as widely regarded as one of the best-selling actors of all time. In wrestling during the Attitude Era, an industry boom for professional wrestling in the 1990s and early 2000s, The Rock was at the top of his game. And there were really just two people synonymous with that era, The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And after 8 years of wrestling, The Rock decided to make the jump and go into acting. And his films grossed $3.5 billion in North America and $10.5 billion worldwide. Although many people think that The Rock is just simply a perfect family-friendly brand that sold out from WWE and was embraced by open arms in the film industry, that couldn't be further away from the truth. Every single step that The Rock has taken has been met with backlash. And he has had to prove himself in every single step he has taken. And with his back against the wall, he formulated a plan that would be the catalyst to him absolutely dominating Hollywood for the past 10 years. Dwayne Douglas Johnson, born in May 2nd, 1972. He would be born in an iconic wrestling family that to this day holds the top spot in the wrestling world. In fact, at the time of recording, his cousin Roman Reigns is at the top of the wrestling world. And he's being dismantled by also The Rock's cousins, Jimmy and Jey Uso, and their brother Solo Sikoa. And this feud has generated unprecedented success to this day. However, growing up, The Rock didn't want to be in the wrestling business. And his family didn't want him to be a part of it either. And his dad was one half of the first World Tag Team Champions with Tony Atlas. But also on her mother's side, Ata was unbelievably close to the wrestling business herself. And in fact, The Rock's grandma would be one of the first female promoters in the world. Like I said, The Rock is part of one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic family in wrestling, the Anoa'i family. This makes him related straight to the top with High Chief Peter Maravilla, who married Leah, and they would own the promotion. Leah would run the promotion after Peter would pass. This would also make him related to the Wild Samoans, Yokozuna, Rikishi, Umaga, and Roman Reigns. And literally you can go watch videos out there about how they're all related because it is just so confusing.
He said quick rundown. Ain't nothing quick about this family tree.
It starts from the high top, High Chief Peter Maravilla.
All right, and
You know
then,
what I'm saying?
and then it goes to
Rocky Soul Man Johnson.
I mean, we're gonna count him too. Then we got Alpha and Secret.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Then we came down to the Tonga Kid.
And then it goes to our dad, Rikishi, right?
Yeah. Samu, the head shrinkers at the time.
Yeah, and then it goes to
Yoko.
my dad's other brother, Umaga, right?
Yeah.
And then, like he said, you know, it goes to
The mighty Yokozuna.
that's my dad's first
R.I.P.
cousin. From that class, and it goes one under, which is
The Usos, Jimmy and Jey.
who her father is Rikishi, right?
Then we can get to, along with us, we get to Roman Reigns, the tribal chief.
Right, whose father is Sika from the Wild Samoans,
Yes,
right?
sir. Then it gets to Solo Sikoa.
Who is our dad still Rikishi,
and
right?
our younger brother. Oh, we also got our cousin Manu that
Can't leave him out. His dad is Uncle Alpha from the
yeah.
Wild Samoans, you know?
Then we got Lance of the White made a few debuts on
Lance
Monday
on
Night
the
Raw.
White. His dad is Samu,
Yeah,
right?
geez,
My dad's cousin.
Oh, then we got Tamina. Tamina's also out here
You know,
too.
Tamina.
Nia Jax, you know, she's there. Who else we got? Who else we got?
I mean, then we got the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu.
There he
You know?
is, yeah.
You'll hear about him.
Yeah,
His dad is Tonga Kid, right?
Yeah.
There's some more, bro. We
Yeah,
deep.
there's a lot of cousins out there in the independent scene that are still doing it.
Yeah, like I said, The Rock didn't want to be a wrestler himself. And this is because after his dad would stop working in WWF, they would move back to Hawaii and things would get rough for the family. His dad would start getting old and he would start working less and less, bringing them into poverty. At this point, The Rock at a very young age saw how unforgiving and how financially unstable it could be to be a professional wrestler. So he wanted nothing to do with it. This would make The Rock very frustrated and he would start stealing to get nice things that he couldn't afford. And he would eventually get arrested. He would also start fights in school and turn into an angry kid at 13 years old. He was lost and lacking guidance, so his family relocated to Nashville, and then they would finally end up settling in Pennsylvania, where Dwayne attended Freedom High School in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Freedom High School would actually be his fourth high school in 3 years in 3 different states. He would continue participating in petty crimes, and at age 17 he would get arrested multiple times for fighting, theft, check fraud, and his life was really in a fast track to going nowhere. Parents really didn't know what to do, because at this time your kid is just shaping up to go nowhere. But in fact, The Rock, a huge human for his age at the time, as he puts it, he would start getting hit on by football coaches who would try to recruit him to play in the football program. The Rock wouldn't be happy about this, and he would get into a fight with the football teacher. However, after settling their argument, he recruited him and asked him to join the football program. Johnson would go on to join the football program and would go on to become the Beast of Bethlehem, and he would exceed at it. So much so, he would end up getting a scholarship for one of the best universities in football out there, Miami U, the Hurricanes. However, The Rock wasn't too successful at it, because even though he made a great impression at first, he wouldn't be able to even make a single appearance on the field because he would injure his shoulder, and the coaches would turn their attention to Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp would go on to become an NFL Hall of Famer. No NFL coaches were willing to take a chance on him, and he would only be able to play in the Canadian Football League. He would essentially go and make minimum wage in the Canadian Football League, and when the season was over, The Rock would officially retire from football. He would return to his home that was now in Tampa with $7 in his pocket and with no future. Keep in mind the $7 part. At this time, he would decide, hey, let's give wrestling a try. His dad would not want him to jump down this path. However, he eventually convinced him, and due to his lineage, he didn't really have to struggle in any indie shows, because shortly after he started training, he would go straight into the big leagues, World Wrestling Federation, WWF. No, not the Panda version, come on. There you go. Not only he would get signed to the big leagues really quick, but he would debut in the biggest stage. November 17th, 1996, Madison Square Garden. He would make his WWF debut as Rocky Maivia, combining his father's and grandfather's names. He was a blue chip prospect, and he had so much hype behind him because he was a third-generation superstar. The Rock would go on to get pushed heavily, however, the fans absolutely hated him. You see, nobody really understood what this Rocky Maivia kid was about. And within 3 months, he would win the Intercontinental Championship. However, chants of "Die Rocky Die" would flood the arena. While yes, the outcomes in wrestling are predetermined and the matches are choreographed, there is nothing fake about the hits you get and about the crowd reactions. And the way to get fan engagement was either through personality, looks, or charisma in the microphone. Or other than that, obviously being a good wrestler. And The Rock at this point had none of the above. So whenever he was scheduled to win the championships, nobody liked him. Rocky would lose his championship and injure his knee, leaving him out of TV for a long time. And in wrestling, the saying always prevails, out of sight, out of mind. You see, Dwayne would go on to get healthy, but there was really no purpose for him to be on TV. Nobody liked him. He wouldn't engage the crowd. There was nothing to it. So he would come back as a heel for the Nation of Domination, a predominant African-American group. He would come back with a more aggressive demeanor. Whenever he was given the mic now, he would go on straight to attack the fans. He would come to outshine the group so much that he would be booked to turn on the group and become his own person. And the charisma would start showing as he would insult the group, insult the crowd, insult everybody, and he was great at it, becoming the most entertaining thing they had on TV. And this was a very competitive time. They had D-Generation X, they had Stone Cold, they had Vince McMahon, they had Mike Tyson. There was a lot of things going on, but The Rock was something always that you wanted to tune in for. And just like I said, the audience would find this promos hilarious, so they would go on to start liking The Rock now. From the single eyebrow raise to his numerous catchphrases, over-exaggerated mannerisms, He established himself as the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. At this time, The Rock had surpassed the legacy that anyone in his heritage had set. The Rock, being the most charismatic and marketable wrestler and the most popular in wrestling history, was a perfect storm for him to jump onto Hollywood. He figured the transition from wrestling into acting wouldn't be that hard, because after all, wrestling is kind of like acting, but a lot more painful, and you only get one take. So he started dabbling in TV with cameos in the 70s show, Star Trek, Voyager, Saturday Night Live, and his SNL debut. One of the most respected critics of all time, Roger Ebert, said this.
Have you met The Rock before? This guy is going to be a major movie star. You should get out of wrestling as soon as possible.
He would make his film debut in 2001 with The Mummy Returns. The Rock would go on to perform about 15 minutes in this. Despite only having 15 minutes on screen time, Johnson was paid $5.5 million, and to be honest, probably 5 out of those 15 minutes were only a terrible CGI off him. This would go on to break a record for an untested actor. This goes to show you how popular The Rock was in pop culture at the time. He would go on to do a prequel to that movie and make a bunch of money on that as well. However, he would still find his way to come back to wrestling, and people would turn against him because of his Hollywood success. So The Rock would go on back to turn heel once again. But you see, it wasn't that easy for him, because early in his career, he also had quite a few financial flops in Hollywood. So this would leave him wondering whether he should stick to wrestling and just dedicate himself to that, or become a full-time actor. So he would find a nice medium between the two and dub himself as Hollywood Rock, essentially playing a snobby Hollywood jock. And this would be the perfect move for him, because like I said, with his charisma and hilarious jokes, people would just naturally start liking him again. And plus, at this time, The Rock was already a legend, really, so you couldn't hate him for too long. However, The Rock's contract with WWE ended in 2004, and he quietly retired without making a big announcement. The Rock knew that putting his body on the line at 32 years old would eventually catch up with him, and he could make a lot more money in Hollywood. So he dialed in and focused 100% in going in Hollywood. In 2004, he would have a couple headlining roles, but he would still really struggle finding his thing in Hollywood. There was nothing to indicate that he would be a top success in Hollywood. So he would decide to rebrand once again, and now take on his role as the Gentle Giant. Rocky would be that intimidating wrestler that has done some crazy things in his life. However, he would take on comedy roles and be extremely kind and nice, as well as letting his charisma shine in his movies. This would also require him to lose a lot of weight and slim down his appearance, which, let's be honest, a slim version of The Rock is still super scary. And here, The Rock would finally find some decent success financially, as movies like Game Plan, Race to Witch Mountain, Get Smart, and The Tooth Fairy would go on to do really good financially. All of them making over $100 million financially. Now this came with a little bit of an issue, because making it in movies as Gentle Giant is nice, but hey, you're The Rock. You're one of the biggest badasses from the 90s. Boxing yourself like a Gentle Giant might seem like a downstep. He wanted to do action movies, so he would rebrand himself once again. So he called a meeting with his agents, and they decided a plan to take Hollywood hostage. He said he wanted to be like Will Smith, only different and bigger. I don't know what that means, he said, but I can see it. And I have these. He held up his hands, and I need everybody to see it with me. The silence in the room was profound. Nobody really understood what he was trying to say. So The Rock made the drastic move to fire them, and he would go on to get a new team. So basically, this plan wasn't about making money anymore. This plan was about changing his image. So he would turn down all comedy films and all good guy films. He would go on to become a villain, now in Hollywood terms. To do this, he shaved his head for good and would put on a lot of muscle. He would go on to get a lead role in an action film called Faster. In this film, he was a criminal out for vengeance after being in prison. But this wasn't the huge role that changed his career, but that would be soon to come, because his Hollywood takeover would start with Fast 5 in 2011. The Rock entered the Fast and Furious franchise as Luke Hobbs, a diplomatic security service agent who enters the movie investigating the death of 3 DIA agents. At this point, the Fast and Furious franchise was already extremely successful. And getting yourself a role in one of these is like hitting the Hollywood jackpot. During 2012 and 2016, he had to prove that this wasn't a one-time thing. And he had to prove that he was here to stay. And he did exactly that. He would go on to make a brief wrestling return for 2 matches against John Cena, twice in a lifetime. It's actually supposed to be only once in a lifetime, but they did it 2 years in a row. I don't know why, don't ask me, man. In 2013, that same year, he did 5 movies: Snitch, G.I. Joe, Empire State, Pain and Gain, and Fast and Furious 6. Becoming one of the highest earning actors, with his films earning him $1.3 billion worldwide. In 2014, he did Hercules. In 2015, he did Furious 7, San Andreas. In 2016, Central Intelligence. At this point, The Rock was getting a major lead role every single year. His fame was at an all-time high, as he had successfully rebranded himself as a rugged action star. And this was all great, but the real takeover really was about to start as he invested in his own production company, 7 Bucks Production. But before that, I want to point out something that is very important. The Rock is one of the most driven, well-behaved actors out there. Actors tend to be prima donnas, not like to do their job, showing late to work, etc. And The Rock just had the perfect discipline for all this. He would also get along with all cast members and crew, so he would literally be the perfect actor. Brad Payton, a producer has produced him 3 times now, decided to give an important quote on why everybody should have The Rock on their team. Dwayne is one of those guys where you present the challenge and he's going to succeed, come hell or high water. When I need Dwayne to do something that's difficult, is the equivalent of being able to be like, you see that wall? I need you to run through that wall. And he's like, that wall? And I'm like, yeah, that wall. And then he's like, man, f that wall. And I'm like, all right, roll cameras, here we go. This is the reason why he gets casted for so many films. One of the downsides being that, well, he has to play the same character on every single film. Because as he'll say, you'll never see him playing a psychopath or somebody that is suffering from depression. He will always be this tough, rugged guy in the screens, which helps his brand. But at this point, he already was like, you know what? I'm also gonna start producing my own movies. Because now he would have to stop going to castings and they would write movies for himself in 7 Bucks Production. He wouldn't have to audition for roles because they were literally written around him. And once 7 Bucks Production has a film, they pitch it to another big movie company and they partner in it. Paramount, Columbia Pictures, DC, Disney, Cinema. And since they're a partner, it means that The Rock has some ownership on the film. And boy, will The Rock become a billionaire eventually by just doing this. But he is also investing some of his own money into the movies, possibly losing tens of millions of dollars. Very similar to what Rob Dyrdek did as he was producing Ridiculousness with his company Super Jacket, and then would go on to sell Super Jacket for a huge profit. So when The Rock is filming a movie, his team already knows how long the movie film is gonna take, what the next movie is, and what the next step is gonna be. Saving him a lot of time, and this will allow him to work all the time and keep stacking up the money. For example, in 2017 and 2018, he released 4 films: Baywatch, Jumanji, Rampage, and Skyscraper. In February 2016, he began filming Baywatch all over the US. 7 months later, in September 2016, Jumanji began filming in Hawaii. So as soon as he was done in Baywatch, he goes on and flies to Hawaii to do the filming over there. And then 7 months later, he flies to the filming in Jumanji. And then on April, he goes to Chicago and films Rampage. And then in August 2017, he goes to Vancouver and films Skyscraper. See, as he's filming, he's also doing promos and press releases. So there's no downtime, no auditions, no preparation. The Rock has turned into a machine that uses every formula in every movie and pumps out 2 to 3 movies per year, making millions of dollars every single year. Meanwhile, while he does all this, his team is writing and pitching movies 2 to 3 years ahead of time. So he never has to have a moment where he's not filming. The Rock would get casted to the top by DC Films as Black Adams. You see, they wanted to cast him as Shazam, but he said that he'd much rather do the villain. And people are accusing him now of his ego running out of control. Because let's be honest, his feud with Vin Diesel is very well known in the film world. to the point that Vin Diesel would essentially kick out The Rock from the Fast and Furious franchise. However, they would go on to make amends, and Vin Diesel would go to offer The Rock to be back a part of Fast and Furious. However, The Rock adamantly declined. He said that he did regret making those comments about Vin Diesel, but he was way past Fast and Furious now. People started seeing this as The Rock's ego going above and beyond, whereas he won't film movies that he doesn't call all of the shots in. But then again, maybe he does deserve to call all the shots. In just 5 years, 7 Bucks Production has been able to generate $3.3 billion in worldwide box office revenue, and The Rock is determined to outwork everyone. None of the success was handed to him. He was not lucky. He came from nothing and had been rejected for every single industry he started in. And instead of wallowing on his sadness, he did the absolute opposite. He got to work. He remodeled his image multiple times and developed an incredible work ethic to bring positive energy to everyone around him and stay out of controversy. Sure, he doesn't test himself creatively, but he definitely sticks to what works for him. Now 50 years old, he's created a $300 million machine that will continue to work on his favors for years to come. And he built it all, like he said, with his own 2 hands. Thank you for watching this so much. This video that YouTube suggests that is the best video for you to watch. I'll see you in the next video. See ya! Ballin' now, skirt down, all of these diamonds soap. Bottom for me with the yours now. You could drink it, but take it slow. Ballin' for you, falling for you.